Hi, so welcome to this video. My name is Paul Broysen, and today I'm going to show you the tutorial that I've been working on over the weekend. So this is about a day and a half, 2 days worth of work that I did. So when the player starts the game, they'll be presented with an optional dialogue that says, do you want to play a tutorial, yes or no? If they click yes, this is basically what they get presented with. So as we can see here, corporate mandates that all employees should be as productive as possible by not wasting their time figuring out how to do work. This tutorial will get them started. And then here, the game is just setting up a virtual environment, or at least, it's pretending that it is. So let's get started. All right, so we spawn in this virtual world that we see here, where we are the actual character that we are in the real game as well. We have some UI interfaces that we see all around. And then in the top right, we can see our current objective, which is find and mine some gold. So let's try and do that. So if I try and leave this this mine that I'm in currently, it's going to say, finish the objective that you're doing before returning to the surface. And that objective is finding and mining some gold. So the only thing that a player really can do is mine, and when they mine through the first type of ore, they get presented with this screen here, which has an arrow, which we see there pointing towards the cargo, and some dialogue at the top, which says that when mining any type ore, it will be added to your cargo, which can be seen at the bottom of the screen. So what this tells us already is that whenever we pick up any type of ore, it will, use one of those slots that we have. So if we mine down, and we mine another one of our ores, and we mine another one, different type ore, in this case an iron, we can see that first of all, it filled a new slot, right? So now we have a copper slot, and we have an iron slot. But what we can also see is that each type of slot has a number of items it can fill. So for copper, for example, you can fill a maximum of 5 per slot, and for iron, you can fill a maximum of 5 as well. Once those slots are full, it will of course take a new inventory slot. So if we mine further, we can see that we can pick up more copper without any problems. But we're now presented with a third type ore, which is that gold ore that we see there. And that gold ore is our objective. So if we try and go towards it, we can see that we can present with another set of dialogue, which says that before we need to mine a new type of ore, we should check our cargo slots. Because currently they're both occupied. We have our copper and we have our iron slots. So before we can pick up the gold one, which is our objective, we need to drop something. And we can do this by opening our inventory. And we do that by pressing that inventory button that the arrow at the bottom of the screen is pointing towards. So let's click that. And that gives us this window here where we can see all of the ores that we have, the number of them, and the worth of all of each of these ores. We can also see the items at the bottom, but those are not yet relevant to the tutorial. So to pick up the gold, what we need to do is, of course, empty out one of these slots. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drop that iron ore, because, that opens up that slot. And now if you mine that gold ore, we can see that we did indeed pick it up, but, we had to drop our iron ore. But that's not really a problem, because as you can see, that gold ore is worth a lot more than that single iron ore that we picked up. So now that we're at the surface, the player also gets informed about the fuel consumption. So whenever we move, whenever we mine, whenever we do anything else, we can see that that costs fuel. So if we do that, our fuel meter goes down. So the player gets prompted to fully refuel at the fuel station. And once that's done, we have enough to move around again and freely do some other things that we need to do. The next thing that we of course need to do is sell all the ores that we've mined. So we do that at the mineral processor. So if we could drive over here and we press, the interaction button, which is enter on PC, it sells all our ores, and we can see that we now have, a lot of money. So with enough fuel and with enough ores, let's go in this new mine that we have here and just, mine down. And we can see that we have a different type of ground. There's rocks in there, and this slows down our mining speed. So the player gets prompted with a suggestion that they go and upgrade their drill to improve the mining speed. And we do that at the workshop. So when we fly up our tunnel, we can see that we have a workshop here. And this is now a store that we can now finally interact with. Once we open this, we can of course freely go through any of the upgrades, but obviously we wouldn't be able to afford any of the more expensive ones. But, you know, the player can either decide to buy a drill or buy something else. So let's say I'm not going to follow the, you know, the objective and buy something else and close the store. The game will tell us that, you know, even though upgrading is very good for this tutorial, we only need to upgrade the drill. So I've been refunded for the upgrade that I did, and it will just keep doing that until I actually buy the drill. So now that I have the drill, I'm able to mine faster and therefore, you know, have less impact by that that harder rock that I have. And now if I mine down, we can see that it does indeed mine faster again. Once again, we could mine that gold, but the player should have learned by now that if they were to mine both the copper, the silver, and the gold, they would lose their that gold ore that they mine. Also, let's refuel because we're almost out of fuel, and then sell our ores at the mineral processor. So now we have an empty inventory again. Let's go back and mine those gold ores. So once we have mined those, we can see that there is an actual sapphire ore, which of course is going to be worth even more. But there's no way for us to reach that because, you know, we can't mine while flying. We need to have something to stand on. And that's how the game introduces you to the item store, which is going to have some items which you can use to, you know, unlock some gameplay with, right? Or get past some sort of gate. So in this case, the game suggests that I go there and buy something called expanding foam. So if we fly up and we go to the item store, we can see that we can now also enter that store. So once we do that, we see all of the items that we can buy and use in the game. So let's take a look at those. We have reserve fuel tanks, hull repair kit, we have dynamite, we have plastic explosives, a teleporter, an old scanner, and the expanding foam that we need for the tutorial. So in this case, let's just buy a couple of those expanding foams and then close it. Next up, to complete our mission objective, we need to use that expanding foam to reach that ore that was previously out of reach. So let's go back into the mine that we have. And then once we get back here, we can see that it now has that lit up square, which sort of tells the player where they need to go. So once the player drives in closer, we can see that the game once again informs us about a new mechanic or a new type of interaction with the game. It tells us about our tool belt, and the tool belt is what we see in the bottom left of our screen, which has all of those items that we were able to buy at the store. So using the two buttons that we can see next to the icons, in this case Q and E on PC, we can move left and right to find all the different items that we need. So now that we know that, we can close this prompt and get back to our game. So as you can see, I have that expanding foam selected. How do I use it? Well, that's using that interaction button. We cannot fill here. If I try and do that somewhere like here, it will just tell us that we cannot do that. But once we move over to this square and we press tab, we can see that a green outline spawned. That's something that I still have to improve because it's not quite visible. But once you leave it, it will actually, you know, spawn that that foam block that we have, allowing us to step up on it and then mine the final ore, which will complete the tutorial.